Yo, what's good? It's the Troy-Lyn show. I know I don't have any subscribers. I think I got like 10, but I wanted to start off by making a video about the Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder fight. It was a good fight. Personally, is probably if not the best heavyweight fight that I've seen, it's definitely one of the best heavyweight fights that I've seen. I thought it was, I mean, it was a privilege for everyone who had the opportunity to see this fight. I think they both put on a heck of a showcase. But I did want to just talk through some of the history of the first fight, the second fight, and most importantly the third fight. Right. Personally, I think Tyson Fury won the first fight. I know Deontay Wilder had two or three knockdowns for Tyson against Tyson Fury during the first fight. The way boxing is scored, since he was winning every round, including I think the last round that Tyson Fury got knocked down, could have been scored a draw. You heard Deontay Wilder in the 12th round. I personally thought he won that fight. The second fight, obviously he won that fight. There was the controversy about the gloves, the corner, Mark Breland, the suit, the water. I mean, there was countless controversies about the second fight. We don't know what happened. We never will, unfortunately. And then it leads me to why I'm making this video, which is the third fight. So for starters, I didn't have Tyson Fury winning the third fight. I mean, after that last fight, Deontay Wilder came out. He fired his head trainer. He brought in Malik Scott, who he had a great relationship with, former heavyweight title contender. And I bought a lot of stock. I bought a lot of the Deontay Wilder stock. I cleared my bank account to buy the Deontay Wilder stock to the day from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, babe. Oh my God. But yeah, I bought a lot of stock in Deontay Wilder for this third fight. I had him stopping Fury in the early rounds. We've seen examples before. You look at the Luis Ortiz fight where Luis Ortiz was winning every round. Deontay Wilder got that stoppage. I believe it was in the 8th or the 10th round. The later rounds are not Deontay Wilder's friend. I mean, that's probably the case for a lot of heavyweights. The battle of attrition is always one that's top of mind. But point is, I had Deontay Wilder by stoppage in the early rounds. I actually bet a decent amount of money on Deontay Wilder. It's besides the point. I'm probably going to have to sell my soul, sell a kidney on Squid Games or something. But as the fight progressed, I'll start with the first round. The first round, Deontay Wilder came out and looked extremely sharp, right? He came out, he got off first. He hit Fury with a very stiff jab to the body that backed Fury up. He really pressed the action in the first, I would say, the first 5 minutes of the fight, the first 3 minutes, and then the 2 minutes of the second round. I really feel like Deontay Wilder's attempt was to come out, control the pace of the fight, have high activity, and work behind the jab. After that, I feel like Deontay Wilder resulted back to the old ways. Once Tyson Fury started to parry that jab, once he started to use his footwork to get out of the way of the jab, once he started to throw the jab at the same time, once he started to throw hooks off that jab, that really became an obstacle for Deontay Wilder, and that has been for a very long time. I mean, I would say his entire heavyweight career, if we think about it, he's always struggled with boxers. However, he's had that equalizer that's been able to humble whoever the opponent is on the other side, which has worked very well for him. The further the fight went on, I really, really, really started to sway my opinion in terms of what would happen towards Tyson Fury, because I didn't see Deontay Wilder winning a fight on the scorecards. I saw Deontay Wilder either winning by knockout, but I also didn't see Tyson Fury winning this third fight by knockout, especially coming out of the second fight with some of the allegations about tampered gloves and etc. If you recall, for this third fight, during their final press conference, Deontay Wilder said, we've taken a lot of steps to make sure that we're on a level playing field. In fact, at the last minute, he changed his glove to the MMX gloves, which I didn't personally think was a good idea. For those of you guys who don't know, MMX gloves are seen as puncher's gloves in boxing. There's different types of gloves. You look at Grants, you look at Winnings. I personally use Winnings. There's not really a lot of boxing glove manufacturer companies. The biggest difference is how they pad the gloves. And while Deontay Wilder is a puncher, MMX gloves are really designed for people that have hard hands, not people that are just necessarily punchers. And the reason why is because you run the risk of severely hurting your hands based on how the padding is distributed with those type of gloves, which we found out today, the day after the fight, that Deontay Wilder did break a couple of his fingers, I think his hand as well. But back to the fight. The further the fight went on, I really saw it tilt towards Tyson Fury. I mean, very quickly after that first knockdown, Deontay Wilder looked like he was gassed. I would say after the second round, Deontay Wilder started to look like he was gassed. I think where we saw him excited was during, I think it was the fourth or the fifth round, where he got those two knockdowns from Fury back to back, which was probably purely adrenaline that he thought he would get Fury out. But I don't even feel like Fury was hurt from those knockdowns. I feel like Fury was hurt more from the knockdowns that happened in the first fight. He almost got counted out in that 12th round. But this time, when Fury got knocked down, I mean, he almost instantaneously got back up to his feet, and was ready to go. I was a little nervous. I was happy because, again, I was going for Fury, but he never really appeared that he was hurt or that he lost his legs. But Deontay Wilder's legs looked lost from the second round, which leads me to his training and preparation for this fight. First of all, if Mark Breland got fired, everybody should have got fired, right? Like, Jay was in the room, and I can tell you from being a person that's promoted professional fights in the past, sure, there's an opportunity to tamper with anything. Sure. At a fight of this magnitude, it's very, very, very difficult. Fighters don't even see the gloves until the day before the fight. Sometimes the day of, depending on the fight, how big the fight is. They have absolutely no access to them. They can't take them back to the room overnight. I've personally been the person to deliver the gloves for some fights. So I know what that process looks like very well. Again, that's not to say that it's not a flawed system. It's just very difficult to overcome. But the reason why I say that is because boxing is very psychological in nature. Think about being Deontay Wilder from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Oh my God, to this day, right? You wake up in the morning, you step a foot out of bed, you walk out the house, you walk around your city, you fly around the United States, and there is no one that can touch you. There's no one that can touch you. You can put the paws on anyone, right? And then you run into that person that isn't known for having knockout power, but's known for being a better boxer, and that person has the ability to sit you down several times. Think about the psychological impact that has. That's a huge psychological impact. You go from being the baddest man in the world to your world significantly shrinking, right? And then on top of that, Mark Breland, being that boxing is such a psychological sport, Mike Breland saved the psychological impact of what this fight will have during that last fight. Deontay Wilder didn't look particularly confident when he started to face adversity and when the game plan started to go astray a little bit. And I can only imagine the level of confidence that he would or would not have had coming into this fight had that fight not been stopped. I think it was a good stoppage by Mark Breland. I think Mark Breland, as a world-renowned amateur in the middleweight division, he knew what he was doing. And sometimes, look, you need people that are willing to not be a yes man in your corner, that don't just want a paycheck, to make those decisions. Less about you going out on your shield, but more so about maintaining the confidence that you have as a fighter. And most importantly, maintaining your safety so that you can go home to your family, your loved ones, and see another day, right? We've had countless instances over the past 2 years of fighters dropping in the ring, and I won't name who they are. But those of you who are watching, which it looks like no one's watching, that's fine. But you guys know who those are. The Patrick Days, the Maxim Dadashevs, the gal that just died recently in the ring. She was only 18. I actually had a personal friend, his first fight, he came out the ring a vegetable. He was never the same again. And so when you're getting caught with those types of shots, those aren't necessarily shots that professional fighters get caught with unless you're out of it. Which leads me to Deontay Wilder's training camp. Now, again, I bought all the Deontay Wilder stock. I thought Deontay Wilder would win. But let's break down his training camp for a second. Deontay Wilder's training camp, I have a lot of friends that are pro fighters, that are trainers, that are promoters. I mean, you name it. Um, they would send me videos of Deontay Wilder and Malik Scott in the deep forest or wherever Deontay Wilder lives, and they're in the ring and they're training, and they're like, "Look at Deontay Wilder, he's bulking up. He looks so good. He looks so good." And I said, "Damn, Deontay Wilder does look good." And then all of a sudden, when Wilder Fury 3 happened, the Mike Tyson adage came back. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And it showed. And I immediately had an epiphany and thought back about the training footage that I saw from him and Malik Scott. And I'm gonna break this down pretty simple. Go back and watch any of the training footage of Deontay Wilder and Malik Scott training in the woods. There's a few key things that I want to point out. One, Robert Helenius is not Tyson Fury. We all know that. He's not close. He's big. He's Caucasian. He's bald, but he ain't Tyson Fury. The second thing, boxing is not a hard sport. I just oversimplified that. Let me clarify. Boxing is a series of drills. Boxing is footwork. Boxing is body movement. Boxing is cardio. But when you break boxing down to its most fundamental themes, it's a series of drills. And what you create as a drill and make permanent in your routine is what you're going to carry into the ring. And let's think about this for a second. When Deontay Wilder started to face adversity from Tyson Fury in his third fight, what did he do? When you look at the times that he got dropped, he kept getting caught with that fundamental right cross, right? Every time Tyson Fury would stick the jab out there, he would paw, he would knock his guard down. Deontay Wilder would do what? He would move. He would move his hands. He would start to panic. When that happens, you don't panic. You got to pick up the phone, right? What do they say? Pick up the phone, baby. Ooh, like when that happens, you got to pick up the phone. Excuse me. If you think about when Deontay Wilder got knocked down, I think it was in the 8th round of this fight. When he came out, he went straight to the body of Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury knew that punch was coming. Then he threw the hook. Tyson Fury got under it. Where was Deontay Wilder's phone? Where was his phone? It was still in the carrying case, right? And then what happened? He was on the canvas. I think that was in the 8th round. It might have been the 10th round. But that's a fundamental principle, right? You know you throw that right cross or you know you throw that hook, you know what you're in position to be countered for. You got to pick up the phone, right? You got to pick up the phone. That didn't happen at all. So then I said, let me go watch some of these training videos again. And when I would watch the videos, I would notice that Malik Scott, great trainer, would try to take Deontay Wilder into deep water, right? So he had Deontay Wilder, they're out in the forest. We don't know at what point they started to record the mitt workouts, but in some of the videos, you could tell Deontay Wilder was tired. And I immediately noticed, I said, oh my goodness. Sure, Deontay Wilder bulked up. Sure, Deontay Wilder looks like he's sticking the jab. Everybody look good in the gym. I can tell you people that look good in the gym all the time that cannot fight. But more importantly, I said, oh my goodness, look at where Deontay Wilder's hands are. When Deontay Wilder got tired, when he was training with Malik Scott, his hands weren't here. His hands were here. And if you look at every punch, not every punch, if you look at a lot of the punches Deontay Wilder got caught with, especially the big shots, it was because his hands were here and not here, especially close, right? Another thing that I noticed Deontay Wilder did, you're a big guy, right? You guys are both big guys. A lot of the time, Deontay Wilder was exhausting himself by smothering his punches. And what I mean by that is he was too close to be throwing jabs and right crosses. When you're close, you're throwing hooks and uppercuts, right? You're not throwing jabs and crosses at this distance, smothering your punches. There's no power behind those punches. And Tyson Fury knew that. And so I think another element of it is when Deontay Wilder first came out, I think he punched himself out pretty early. He came out with a lot of emotion. He came out throwing really big punches. A missed punch takes so much more energy than a punch that's landed. I can't even describe it. It takes so much more energy, especially when you're talking about fighters that struggle with attrition, just being as big as they are. You missing big looping shots like that, that will drain your energy so bad. I also don't feel like his legs were there, which leads me back to the last thing I'm gonna say, and it relates to his training camp again. People said, "Oh man, Deontay Wilder put on all this weight," and um, what did they say? Deontay Wilder put on all this weight, and that's gonna be good. Tyson Fury won't be able to bully him or or push him around. Deontay Wilder didn't need to put on any weight. If anybody tells you Deontay Wilder needed to put on weight, something is wrong. I don't even know why that was a strategy from his camp. Think about it for a second. There's been people that have come out and said Deontay Wilder's been pretty stubborn to work with. I think after seeing this third fight, I somewhat believe that. I don't know. I don't know Deontay Wilder, but think about it for a second. You've had over 40 fights. In those 40 fights, you couldn't box, but you could punch at the weight you were. You were knocking people out at the weight you were. Why would you go put on 20, 30 pounds? Why would you do that? That makes zero sense. That makes zero sense. You didn't need to put on more weight. You needed to have some boxing fundamentals. But even to that, you're not going to outbox a person that's been boxing since they were 10. You're not, right? Like, when you think about boxing, it's one thing to know how to throw punches and look good on the mitts. The people that are best at boxing are the best at staying calm when they're taking punches, when punches are being thrown at them, right? The Mayweathers, the Tiafimos, the whoever you want to call it. Canelo, I don't care who it is, but look at how they respond when punches are being thrown at them, right? The people that panic take the phone off the hook and put it back in the case, right? And they get caught with silly shots. And that's what we witnessed. Moreover, people say, well, Tyson Fury put on this weight. How come he didn't get tired? You got to understand, Tyson Fury's a boxer. Tyson Fury has had several boxing camps where they've changed the strategy of weight. So Tyson Fury understands how to put on weight and maintain as much of that attrition as possible, right? That wasn't the strategy from Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder didn't need to put on weight. Deontay Wilder needed to come in a better boxer. But regardless of how good of a boxer Deontay Wilder would have come in as a boxer, he wouldn't have fared well against Tyson Fury. And I think that's unanimous. We can all agree on that, regardless of who you thought would win the fight. I think overall it was an amazing fight. They both put on a heck of a show. Like I said, I bought a lot of Deontay Wilder stock. I've gone back, I've rewatched the press conferences. It's a lot of stuff that probably won't age very well. I've spent all morning apologizing for being a Deontay Wilder troll to a lot of people in their comments and under videos, because again, I purchased all the Deontay Wilder stock. But I think this is it as far as seeing the two of them fight. Like, we've seen 3 fights. Personally, I think Tyson Fury won all 3 to this point. We can't argue the last 2. We can argue the efficacy of the last one if you want to. But the first one, I think that should have went Tyson Fury's way. This one obviously did. The middle one, we'll call it what it is. But styles make fights, and stylistically, Tyson Fury is not a good style for Deontay Wilder's type of fight. I think the scary part here is now we've seen the blueprint. I think people have had this blueprint for a while. You look at Luis Ortiz and a few other people that have tried to box Deontay Wilder that couldn't stay out of the way of that right hand. But if you notice, when Deontay Wilder comes in, he takes that big step and he telegraphs that punch, which may be a little challenging to get out of the way of. But if you can figure that out, if you can have enough of a chin, you can take Deontay Wilder into deep water, might be able to drown him. But I think overall it was a great fight. I hate to be the person that says who I would like to see either of them in the ring with next. Personally, I don't think anyone right now in the heavyweight division can really stop Tyson Fury. It's definitely not Usyk. I don't think Usyk is a better boxer. He can box, but he's not as big. He doesn't have the weight. I think his biggest attribute would be that if the fight goes deep, he'll be able to survive, but I don't see him beating Tyson Fury. If he does, it'd be on the cards. Outside of that, as far as Deontay Wilder, honestly, I would love to see Deontay Wilder fight Anthony Joshua. That's been a fight that people have clamored over for a while. I say people, I mean me. I'd love to see how the two of them fare with each other. I mean, both of them are coming off their second career losses. Deontay Wilder's coming off his second knockout. This one was actually a knockout. The last one was a TKO, and Anthony Joshua's coming off of his second loss, but the first loss was a TKO that came from Andy Ruiz. I'd love to see Wilder fight him or an Andy Ruiz. Personally, I don't think that there are very many people that can beat Deontay Wilder because of his punching ability. But if people can neutralize that right hand, then I feel like Deontay Wilder is somewhat of a sitting duck. Overall, I'm a huge fan of both fighters. I think we have to take our hats off to both of them and really give them their flowers and the respect that they deserve. You got to have courage to get in the boxing ring. When people get out of that ring, they're not the same as they were when they entered it, even though they might look the same and talk the same. Every time a fighter gets in that ring, a piece of them dies in that ring for our entertainment. So I'd love to have your guys' comments and feedback. Let me know how you feel. Tell me how I did in this video. Please like and subscribe. Until the next one, it's the Troy-Lyn Show.